So I'm Alison Timmins, and this is the Artifacts exhibition, which is a show in collaboration with AI, and hopefully you can have a nice wander around with me. They used to live in villages, the UK was spread out, and then mechanisation started, the factories began. Bolton, built on the factories, and they kind of started to see culture being reproduced in a way they weren't expecting, which mass production of books, they could reproduce images, which apparently was going to be the death of art. So we're in a very similar place now with AI, can mass produce images, but I don't think it's going to be the death of art again. Hopefully not. But this piece was inspired by William Holman Hunt, who I typed into an image generator, and I asked for a photograph of a Victorian-looking woman in the style of William Holman Hunt, with modern technology involved, because I wanted to see how far I could push text to image. Because if you've ever used Midjourney or any of the AI things, it's all about your prompt. It's all about how you phrase it, what you asked for. So as an artist, I like to copy from photographs. That's my kind of genre, 2D to 2D. So I asked for a photograph to get like quite a clean image from the AI, because you can ask it to make a painting, which is great. It's interesting how it does its marks. But for this, it meant I could copy something clean and recreate it. But what's great with the way people have been reading this, and obviously everything you read into it is fine, fantastic, is because we're in Bolton in the setting, people keep telling me where this mill's from. And they say, oh, it's something they went to build. So you're smiling now. But it's not real. None of it's real. It's taken inspiration from all the images it can find in relation to Victoriana, William Holman Hunt, and what it imagines kind of a steampunky piece of technology would be, I suppose, with the headset. So, yes, that's the inspiration for that piece. We'll move on to the next thing. Now, if you asked ChatGPT a few months ago how many R's there are in strawberry, it told you there were 2. And you can have an argument, and that's what this is about. There's an argument here about how many there are, and it spells it out to you and then spells it correctly, but it still says there's 2 R's. So I wanted to take it back in time and make something that looks like it could be from the past and physically take the R out of it, which it was really fun because it's enamelling. If you guys ever get a chance to enamel, please do. It's on the back of glass, it's really cool. But yes, so that's the idea of this, was to take you back in time, because I like to use old frames in my artwork. Again, you instantly think of historical object museums, but I think it's probably a £2 frame from a charity shop. But let's pretend it's got some historic to it. More limbs. And as you can see, it doesn't quite get it right, but it visually knows what we're looking for when we think of a drawing. We think of paper, we think of brush marks, we think of texture, we think of sketchy marks, and even, bizarrely, signatures. So it's learnt from us, which is, I think, reassuring, because with AI, it's learnt from us, and everything we put in, it's taken from that crucible part of creation. So it's not a threat in a sense, because it's learning from us. We're always giving to it. I think it's more flattering than saying, this is what you guys do, this is what you want. But this is the one that came up first, and I thought even in my most surrealist state, I would have never thought of that. I love that so much. It's good, isn't it? I can't even imagine the hip structure. So that's but if you think about it logically, if you imagine looking at 1,000 drawings of the human body, you could picture that. But because we understand how anatomy works, we couldn't picture that. So there's some lovely quirks in AI. And like this lady here too, I'm not sure if she's leaning forwards or backwards, but it's something I wouldn't be able to create. So it's surpassed me, and that's why it became a joint show. When these came up, I was like, well, it's too good. It's too good not to. I like to pull people in and out of time to maybe think of how you'd experience life back then in the same way we're experiencing it now. Of that urge to go back. So I'm sure you've heard of the pre-Raphaelites. So the pre-Raphaelites were in the late Victorian era, and I think mechanisation had been around for a good 50, 60 years, and people were quite used to it. But what the pre-Raphaelites wanted to do is they wanted to go back to a time before machinery, so they became nostalgic about nature and King Arthur and medieval times and how wonderful things used to be before the factories, before mass production. Which, if you think about it, I don't think it was very nice in medieval times. There was a lot of plague and death and general bad. But nostalgia is a wonderful thing, rose-tinted glasses and all that. So this was another prompt similar to the first one, where I wanted to see what its concept of Victorian art would be. And this gentleman came up who is, I have to say, he's quite handsome, which is very strange as a painter. But why is he in an armchair? Why is he in a field? And why has he got 5 feet? There's these good little quirks that creatively I would not have even. It's been really helpful for me, so I'm taking all the advantage from AI at this moment in time. But yeah, I really like it.
For clarity then, is that a print, an actual print?
Oh,
that's
no.
been generated, or you have
Yes.
used the print and then painted?
So, I should make that clear. Thank you for pointing that out. When I type it on the image generator, it's just a text box, and I put my request in, you'll get 4 results, and there are varying different styles, and you can keep trying and get what you want. So I saw the image of him in a field, and I thought, that's fantastic, I'd like to paint that.
Right.
So bringing it from digital to analog, which I think is an important process, because I'm a painter, artist in general. We like the mark of the maker, and even though it's fantastic to look at, I really wanted it in the real world. I wanted it to be museum quality. So I got this old picture frame from my neighbour, which is actually of a tree landscape, if you turn it that way, and you can see all this texture underneath.
Right.
But the frame was fantastic, and it really lent itself to the image. So it was just messing with time. So reminding us that we've been here before, we'll be here again. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. AI is going to be okay. Hopefully it's going to be okay. We're to be aware and critically think about news, because fake news is something that AI is definitely going to be playing a part in. It already has been. We're very visual creatures. We like to see things. We like to make instant assumptions. So this is just, well, you can see. Obviously, we all remember the World Cup in the Colosseum. Fantastic days they were. And how Star Wars, they were part of the founding fathers of America. I'm sure, yes. Now, this is the kind of accidentally controversial one. I thought it was really funny that e-scooters could be around in Edwardian times. Turns out they were. There were electric scooters in Edwardian times, so that is actually true. And oh yes, when you get a chance to look a bit closer, you can see how we went out in call. If you've not seen it, I'm not telling you. You can look. But it's that critical thinking. We don't always trust what you see, more so now than ever. But talking about reading into AI and how we instantly make assumptions, this is based off a fantastic story I read, and I had to make a comparison. Whilst looking into how we read into AI, Clever Hans came up. So Clever Hans was a horse from the 1870s who could do maths. He was really good. He could do all the mathematical equations. He'd tap his hoof to the answer and the whole world would clap, or the room would clap. And a psychologist thought, oh, what's going on here? This can't be right. He went to go and study the horse, and it turned out if no one in the room knew the answer, the horse wouldn't get the answer right. He wouldn't be able to do the maths. If someone did know the answer, the horse would read their micro movements in their face, how excited they're going to get because it's going to get the answer right, and then stop. So, in the same way we're doing that to AI, we're like, oh, it's so clever. It knows no, it's echoing what we want, and then we're putting our assumptions on top of it. But visually, I wouldn't mind. I like Stubbs. If you've ever seen Stubbs likes painting horses, so I wanted to do a painting of a horse and link it back to Clever Hans. So I put the image into AI and I said, could you remove the owner of Clever Hans? He was stood about here, and the horse was a bay horse, a brown horse. And I removed him, and it produced this wonderful white blaze and things here, and then, the extra leg, which not everyone sees, which is another interesting phenomenon. I don't know if it's because of the context of the gallery space, and people assume it's a horse and then kind of walk past it, but the amount of times people have gone, 5 legs! But that has been in progress whilst in the gallery space, which has been fun. It's not quite finished, is it, Julie? But we tried. Too many lovely people have come in asking questions. Yes, that's Clever Hans, and I love him. But when you're making your own artwork, sometimes you feel like you should stop. And that's what happened with this. I wanted to develop it more. But this is just on aesthetics, I think it just really popped. But the original idea was, it's another kind of pre-Raphaelite style image. You can see the shape in the head and that kind of leaning look. This was a different image generator to what I'd used before. But it linked quite well to how the data is collected from AI. So there's a lot of artists who are upset that their work's being used to train the models. So the way AI works is it looks at a vast amount of information, it pulls important sections from it and then repeats it back to you. But people are making money from those repetitions, they're making money from the AI generators themselves. The artists aren't making anything, which is kind of problematic. Again, it's a bit flattering because AI is echoing back humanity to us, which is nice, but there's people making money from it who probably shouldn't be. And what I've seen now in the past few months is I was trying to imitate the ChatGPT logo, which is illegal because of copyright, and it stopped me. I was like, that's fine. But then I'd used a Coca-Cola logo, a fake one, generated a few months ago. That's stopped now, which again, so they are finding a way to stop you reproducing logos, which is fair enough because you don't want to sell a false product, but then they're not paying the people they've been taking the artwork from. So it's an interesting ethical subject to look into for a bit of the future, but anyway, moving on. Does anybody remember Beanie Babies?
Yes.
Do you remember Beanie Babies? Cool. Do you remember Furbies as well?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So, same kind of, I wanted to see what AI would do with a Victorian photo of a Beanie Baby and a Furby. So I typed it in, and this came out. Because clearly it picked up the prompt for baby. This is the other thing too, the prompt's very important if you do want to type it in. But it doesn't know what a Furby is. It's a plastic toy, it's got ears, it makes funny noises. And it generated this. Something very nostalgic for us 90s kids, but it can't do it. So, we're okay. Technology's not going to kill us. We can be nostalgic. I like your expression. Shocked. But again, the kind of, I wanted to frame it in something that takes it back in time so it looks older than it is. But you have to read into the context. I'm a little bit like a golden retriever. I find something interesting, I will bring it out and be like, look, you must see it, it's cool, look at the thing. Yeah, and it moved back onto the painting. These two, this is something that's very important with AI. It's trained on a dense amount of data that involves, I'm so sorry, like white men. I'm sorry, guys, I'm sorry. It's not your guys' fault. But there's a high percentage result of that coming back. So we have to be very careful with our AI futures of what we type in prompt-wise. But we should be ethically diverse, because we are ethically diverse. The planet is full of everyone. But yeah, so AI. There's a really good campaign by Nerve, if you want a QR code here for it. And it talks about how to make your prompts more worldwide, really, and a bit more even, because the women I've got on some of the generators are very unrealistic. Big eyes, big everything else tiny anyway.
So you have to select then the ethnicity that you want.
This one I put in the prompt, be more culturally diverse.
Right.
Just as a test to see what it would do, and it did result in that. And it's nothing untoward, I don't think it's anything dark, it's just it's percentage, it's a computer, it works on high percentage results.
Yeah.
And it's just the mass of the information has been of a certain race of people.
You use the software, is the software constantly updating and upgrading?
Yes, it will take from the data set that surrounds it, which is useful because that leads on to that. It will always keep feeding in more that comes in and the more that come out, but you can be more direct with your prompts from what you want from it. It's not quite like Google because it creates, but it will take instruments from Google and other images that it can source from.
Right.
So it's being trained.
So when you're doing that, are you constantly getting uploads? So every day you have to say, is it you?
No, it's only at the point of delivery.
Right.
So you ask for it and you'll receive. It will always be different every time.
Right.
So, I mean, there's some pieces you'll see in a second. You just hit enter, you get 300 different things. And it will be more diverse, but you still need to be aware of it because it won't go there straight away.
Do you use a particular software? Is it?
Oh yes, I use
Midjourney.
Midjourney's most of the time, but there's loads of them out there. Midjourney you have to pay for, but there are some free ones, but they run out quite quickly. The world's changing in that respect. It might become free. Because ChatGPT, if you use that, the chat bot, it's got DALL-E 3 in it, which is involved in, so you can make images on ChatGPT. I'll show you those ones right here. So you're right, Laura, it's an interesting subject, because if you own it, it's hard who owns it.
Yeah.
Because it's not an entity.
No.
And it's an object. So if I claim it as mine, it is really Midjourney's, but then I can't sue or endorse Midjourney because it's not an entity.
And they can't reproduce your image either.
No, it's your thing.
Yeah.
But that's the interesting licensable thing that we're coming into. It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
Apparently copyright's not actually been sorted since the Victorian age. This is something I was reading up on. Ever since things started to reproduce, like Van Gogh, say, in a Victorian magazine, well not magazine, but a Victorian etching, like who's to blame, who's to sue. We're still in a very grey area. There's a lot of money there. That's a good career. Go become lawyers for AI imagery. That's a good one. But talking about training data, I'm sorry, I know you're all crowding around it. This is an example of what went wrong with the training the models. This is, I'm sorry, this is, you have to go on one side or the other. So you get to see the wolf and you get to see the dog. When they were training AI software to pick up on differences, they tested it to identify between dogs and wolves. So they gave a few data sets of pictures of dogs, pictures of wolves, and it was getting it right about 88% of the time. But again, it turned out it wasn't. They were applauding it, saying, well done, you've learnt that, move on to the next subject. And down the line, they realised it was looking for snow and no snow. So where the wolves are in the snow, it said wolf. But if the dog was in the snow, it would have said wolf. So it was just looking for the whites, it wasn't looking for the actual shape of his face. But it's poisoning the data set that, and when that happens, they have to go back on all the programming. But we're a lot further on this. This is about 10 years ago. They did it with tanks as well. But again, it's us. It's basic computing, garbage in, garbage out. You don't put it in right, you know, with problems. Which leads to these. Have you everyone tried to read these? It's not meant to be awful, they are a headache. It was an accident, but the text looks like text, but the words don't make any sense. This is to demonstrate model collapse, which is an idea that's coming around with AI information, learning from its own fake news. So if we're producing fake news with AI, it's absorbing that as information and then spitting it out again and going into this kind of strange delusion. So in about 4 years, they think, if you look at model collapse, we might not have the internet because it would just be nonsense. You just go on there, all the news will be fake. There's a story at the moment that Apple have got a news site or a news application that keeps producing news, like rounds of news, and it's producing fake news. There was the shooter in America that shot that pharmaceutical guy. This report came up to lots of people's iPhones that he killed himself in prison, and he hadn't. It made the news story up because it thought this is what humans want, this is a news story. It's not true. So, whole new ethical area. So model collapse. Finally, on a happier note, this is where it all started. These 3 images here were done in 2023. And I started with an image generator because I'm like you after all, give it a go. And I typed in on DALL-E 2 a photo of me. That's all I typed in. And this lady came up. One, it looked like a photo. You can look at the actual photos down there in a minute if you like. And she looked kind of like me, so that's kind of a compliment. But there's some very strange quirks in her. Her pupils don't make sense. The rosacea on her face is very strange. And I hit enter again, and it gave me this guy. And I kept hitting enter, and it kept giving me different people. So I picked my favourites, and I painted them for the quirks. Because that idea of portraiture is something so traditional, something we're very used to, and this whole new world of AI, they look like photographs. Like, your brain registers as someone has taken that photo of that real person. They don't exist, they're not real people. And the quirks are funny. It's not my painting, honestly, it's not my painting series, it's the photos they've come from. And then, when the show was being done, I thought I'm going to revisit this idea. So I went for 3 more, and they look like people. There's no quirks anymore. They don't look wrong, they look genuine. So in a year, the technology skyrocketed. So this moment now, AI is the worst it's going to be. It's only going to go up from here, which is, it's exciting. It's worrying, but exciting. Yes, that's the end of the exhibition.
Alison, can you tell us a bit about the faux Polaroids?
Oh, you spotted
Gallery
those.
today.
That was like a little Easter egg, yes. So they're similar to the pieces over there. There are little Polaroids all the way around. And if you look at them, I was trying to trick people. I don't think it's worked. So those that know a Polaroid, they instantly recognise the shape of them, the colorization of them. And if you're, say, under the age of 18, I suppose, you might assume they had Polaroids back in the 60s, or they had Polaroids back in the 50s, or my favourite.
Polaroids in the 60s.
Well, you know, I'm young, Jen. But the content in them is the most important part. So I wanted to use a Polaroid to make people think they were genuine. And if you look at them, every single person is looking at their phone, and it's that new pose that we're all so used to seeing there. So they're going back in time to my favourite one, which is the Spitfire pilots checking their Instagram feeds before going flying. And some kids have thought that was real. They have assumed phones have gone back that far, and even my own parents, looked at the 60s one and went, oh, phones weren't that small back then, they were quite big bricks. They didn't have phones in the 60s! So it's worked, which is depressing. But yeah, we end up with an Edwardian one here, which I wish was real. But it's something we're so used to. So history is a wonderful thing. Hindsight's fantastic, and we will keep looking back on it. So this is photosensitive paint I've used on this piece. It's called Fair Weather Friend. It was designed for the sunny Bolton weather, which we've not had this winter, which is fine. So I've got a UV light here, and you'll see, if the sun was shining, our friend would appear. So I'll go around slowly. It's a much more even light if the sun was out, but needs must. And then it will disappear back to the same colour it was. Hence, Fair Weather Friend. And that's the end of the exhibition. And I just want to say a big thank you to Hive and to Julie Levy and to Richard and everyone involved. It's been really good. Some fascinating people have come in, some really good conversations. So hope to see you at the next show.